Good morning, children. I am Aarthi here to explain the part 2 of the story, The Best Christmas Present in the World, written by Michael Morpiko. So, before reading the story or before moving to the story, let me say a short summary of the part 1 story. I hope, children, you remember it. So, one Mr. Michael Morpiko, who is also the author of the lesson, visits a junk shop and spots a roll-top desk there. He likes the desktop, even if it is damaged. He decides to repair the roll-top desk. So he purchases it, brings to his garage storeroom, and he started repairing it. Before repairing it, he comes to know that there was a letter inside the roll-top desk. So, even if he knew that he should not read the other people's personal letters, his curiosity made him to read the letter. So, the part 2 of the story is the content of the letter. The letter was written by Jim Macpherson, the captain of the England Army. So here he writes the letter to his wife, Connie Macpherson. Let us see the content of the letter. Dearest Connie, I write to you in much happier frame of mind because something wonderful has just happened that I must tell you about at once. So here, Jim Macpherson starts the letter stating that he was very happy at that moment when he was writing the letter. He says that something wonderful has happened in the warfield. We were all standing to our trenches yesterday morning, which was Christmas morning. Trenches. What is the meaning of trenches, children? Trenches means a long ditch-like thing which is dug in the ground for the soldiers to hide. As you see in the picture here, it is a long ditch-like something which the soldiers dug in the ground to hide themselves from the enemies. So when they were waiting in the trenches one Christmas morning, it was crisp and quite all about as beautiful a morning as I ever seen, as cold and frosty as the Christmas morning should be. So in that climate, December climate, it was fully frosty and cold, and it was a very beautiful Christmas morning. I should like to be able to tell you that we began it, but the truth, I am ashamed to say that it is the Fritz did. So Fritz, I've already told you in the first session, children, that it was a pet name given to call the German soldiers. So here, the Jim Macpherson, the captain, he says that he has spotted something fishy about with the Germans when he was standing in the trenches, when they were waiting in the trenches near the no man's land. No man's land is a land which is common to both the England and the German army, which a land which does not belong to either Germans or the English people or the England people. So when they were waiting in the trenches, something fishy had happened among the Freds. First, someone saw a white flag waving from the trenches opposite. Then they were calling out to us from across no man's land. Happy Christmas, Tommy. Happy Christmas. So here, from the other part of the no man's land, someone in the German army called out, Happy Christmas. So here the captain doubts the German soldiers that they have made some trick to come into the no man's land and attack the England people. So he was hesitating what would happen the next moment. So at that time, what happened? They started to wave the white flags and started to shout Happy Christmas. I thought that would be that we all did. But then suddenly some of them was there up in his grey great coat and waving a white flag. Then there was another, Fritz up on the parapet, and another. So everyone, one by one, they started to wave the white flags. The German soldiers started to wave the flags, white flags. That time, Jim Macpherson thought that that might be a trick from the German soldiers. At that very moment, he was surprised. When we had got over the surprise, some of us shouted. Before he got out from the surprise, what happened? The other soldiers from the England army, they also started to wish back. Same to you, Fritz. Same to you. So what happened before the captain could just stop the other soldiers that where he could explain that it might be a trick or what, that the soldiers from the England side also started wishing the German soldiers. By this time, there were dozens of them walking towards us across no man's land and not a rifle between them. So, what happened? Before the time could pass, many of the soldiers they started walking across the no man's land, entering into the England border. So they didn't have any rifle. Rifle means guns. They didn't have any guns or any weapons. They just walked through the no man's land and they entered into the England England border. They were waving out bottles. One of the Germans is waving a bottle above his head. Come on, boys, what are we waiting for? It's Christmas, Tommy. So, what happened? Everyone started to wave the bottles which they had to drink. They started to call the English people to come and enjoy the Christmas feast. We have snaps, we have sausages, we meet you. Yes. So, snaps is a kind of drink, a German drink. So, it was a German drink. So, they are telling that they have snaps. They started to wave the bottles and they told that they had snaps to drink, then they have also sausages. Let us share the food among us and celebrate the Christmas Eve. And then there was no stopping them. I was the officer. I should have stopped them there and then, I suppose. But the truth is that it never even occurred to me I should. All along their line and ours, I could see men walking slowly towards one another, grey coats, khaki coats, meeting in the middle, and I was one of them. I was part of this. So what happened? The author, the Jim Macpherson says, he says before you could think or decide anything, all the soldiers started to meet each other. The German soldiers and the English soldiers, they began to meet each other and started to greet each other. The khaki coats and the grey coats, they were moving towards through the no man's land and they started to greet each other. So he says, being a captain, I should have stopped these people from doing this because they are our enemies. How can we celebrate or how can we share our eatables with those enemies? But nothing stopped me. I was not able to stop them because both the sides, the soldiers were longing for peace. So they were not able to stop. And even the captain, that is Jim Macpherson, he was also not able to stop it. And he says to his wife Connie that he was also part of that incident. In the middle of the war, we were making feasts. You cannot imagine, dear Connie, my feelings as I looked into the eyes of the Fritz officer who approached me, hands outstretched. He gripped my hand warmly. So, here the captain of the German army, he walks towards the captain of England, that is Jim Macpherson. He holds his hand griply and started to greet him. He was saying, Happy Christmas. He introduced himself as Hans Wolf. Hans Wolf, I am from Dusseldorf. I play the cello in orchestra. Happy Christmas. So here he says, I am Jim Macpherson. Happy Christmas to you too, mate. I am a school teacher from Dorset in the west of England. So when they started introducing about each other, they spoke many things about each and everyone's land. Here Miss Mr. Hanks Wolf, he says many things about Dorset. Even though he have not visited Dorset or not even come towards England, he said more about the Dorset. He says, he explains he had got so much of information from the books which he had read, from the English books which he have read, and he spoke very clear English, and he says that he reads more book about English people, and from where he had gathered so much of information about Dorset. He even speaks about books, about what all books he likes to read, and the famous authors books which he liked to read. Everything he discussed about his likingness towards English people and what all he liked, he discusses with Jim Macpherson. He spoke almost perfect English, and he had a wife and one son born just 6 months ago. So he says that he has a wife and even a son who was 6 months old. As I looked about me, there were huddles of khaki and grey everywhere, all over no man's land, smoking, laughing, talking, drinking, eating. There never was a Christmas party like it, Coney. So what happened? He explains to his wife that all over the no man's land he could see all the grey coats and the khaki coats interacting with each other, sharing each other, talking, smoking, laughing, and he says that this was the happiest moment which he had ever had in his life, and he considered that this was the best Christmas party which we had so many years thereafter. He says that it could never happen again also. Hanks Wolf and I shared what was left of your wonderful Christmas cake, Coney. He thought the marzipan was the best he had ever tasted. I agreed. We agreed about everything, and he was my enemy. So here Hanks Wolf and Jim Macpherson shares everything, and here Mrs. Coney has given the Christmas cake. Yes, she has sent a Christmas cake for Jim Macpherson, and they both share the cake. And here you can see a word called marzipan. What is marzipan, children? Marzipan is a sweetening agent which is used for icing the cake. It is a sweetening dish. He says that Hanks Wolf says that the marzipan of the cake was the best part of the cake, and here Jim Macpherson conveys that to his wife Coney, that the cake was such a wonderful cake with the best marzipan, and he says that Hanks Wolf had appreciated her for making such a good cake. He forgot that Hanks Wolf was his enemy. Then someone, I don't know who, brought out a football. So here something happened after that. After all the sharing and talking and discussing and everything, someone bought a football for them to play with. Great coats and guns were dumped in the piles to make goalposts. And the next thing we knew, it was Tommy against Fritz out in the middle of no man's land. So what happened? They started playing football. Both the armies, they started playing footballs. They dug holes. They dug holes, and they made their guns to stand there to make the goalposts, and they started playing football. Hans Wolf and I looked on and cheered happily our hands and stamping our feet to keep out the cold as much as anything. So here both the captains enjoyed the game so much. They stamped their feet and they enjoyed the game as both the armies played the football. Jim Macpherson, I think this is how we should resolve this war. A football match. No one dies in the football match. No children are orphaned. No wives become widows. So here what happened? Hanks Wolf states to Jim Macpherson, so why we should have this war and all those life loss and so much of death and everything happens? Instead of that, we can just play football or something, some matches like this. We think that this would be a best solution for the war, that they can play the game and football and they can resolve the war. So when we play the game, there might be no loss of life, no children will be orphaned, or no wives will be widowed. So he states like that. So what happens here? Jim Macpherson says, I'd prefer cricket, then we Tommies would be sure of winning probably. So here Jim Macpherson says instead of football, if they play cricket match, they would win the match. So because they say that England's are best in playing the cricket. There was a moment when I noticed our breaths mingling in the air between us. He saw it and smiled. We laughed at that. So, what happened? They were discussing, they were so close and sitting close, so close that their breaths started to mingle each other. When they saw that, they laughed. They thought they forgot all about their enmity. And together we watched the game. Sad to say, Coney, Fritz won, 2 goals to 1. But as Hanks Wolf generally said, your goal's wider than ours, so it isn't quite fair. So what happened here? They won. He says to Coney, his wife, that the German people have won the match. But the captain generously says that our goal, that is England's goals, was wider than the Germans. So they won the match, and then the game was come to an end. The time came, and all too soon, when the game was finished. The snaps and the rum and the sausages had long since run out, and we know it was all over. So the game also got over, and all the snacks which they had, the snaps, the rum, the cakes, the sausages, all came to an end, all got over, and even the game was over, and the time was come for them to part from each other. So they started to wave goodbye, and they moved from the no man's land, each to their own country's border. I wish you well and hope the fighting would end and you would see your family again soon and we could all go home. So here Hanks Wolf greets Jim Macpherson. He says that he wishes that the fighting would end soon and they all would go to their lands to meet their family. So here Jim Macpherson says, I think that's what every soldier wants on both sides. Take care, Hanks Wolf. I shall never forget this moment, nor you. So here Jim Macpherson says that this was the wonderful moment which he had in so many years. He says that all the soldiers only need peace. They never thought of fighting with each other. They all need peace. So both the sides. So he also wishes the same, that the war would end soon. So he wishes Hanks Wolf to take care, and he also says that he will never forget this day or never forget Hanks Wolf too. So he saluted and walked away from me slowly, unwillingly. I felt he turned to wave just once and then became one of the hundreds of grey-coated men drifting back towards their trenches. So what happened? Both of them saluted to each other and they started to apart. So they walked back towards their land, and in some time they were buried back into their trenches. They got into their trenches and settled down there. That night, back in our dugouts. So what is a dugout, children? Dugout also is a small pit-like thing which we dug in the ground to safeguard us from the enemies. We heard them singing a carol and singing it quite and beautifully. It was silent night. Our boys gave them a rousing chorus of while shepherds watched. We exchanged carols for a while and then we all fell silent. We had a time of peace and goodwill, a time I will treasure as long as I lived. So what happened after they moved to their borders? They went into their trenches. After that, they sang beautiful Christmas carols. Both the sides they sang with each other. They sang beautifully for some time. Then after that, they became silent. All the soldiers for both the sides, they thought that they would never forget this Christmas because it was the best Christmas which they had. They also said that it was a treasure which should be safeguarded as long as ever because they should remember this as a treasure in their life. So here we come to the end of the letter. So here Jim Macpherson ends the letter to his wife. Dearest Connie, my Christmas time next year, this war will be nothing but a distant and terrible memory. I know from all that happened today how much both armies long for peace. So he says to his wife Connie, last thing he says, by next Christmas that the war will come to an end. And he says that the Christmas which they had celebrated both together will be a memory and will never be forgotten. And he says that both the armies longed for peace. We shall be together again soon. I am sure of it. So here Jim Macpherson ends the letter saying that he will come back soon to meet his wife, and there he ends the letter. Your loving Jim. So now we come to the end of part 2, children. So I hope that you understood this content of the part 2, and I hope you enjoyed the story also. The next part of the story will be continued in part 3. So now we come to the end of the session. So till we meet in another video session, it's bye from me. Have a good day.